Yo, what's up guys, it's NLW here, back again with another video, my Night 2 review of Wrestlemania 37. I didn't actually stay up to watch this one, so my sleep schedule is back on track for now, but it was a solid show, probably not as good as Night 1, but I'll go through it match by match. But before I do, make sure you like the video, helps get the channel out there. Also comment down below, what did you think of Night 2 of Wrestlemania, and as always remember to subscribe to NLW Figs. But without further ado, let's get into it. And we'll start off with The Fiend versus Randy Orton. Now, going into this one, didn't really have that much interest in the match. I thought they were going to be doing, a lot of smoke and mirrors effects with this one, but it was actually just a straight-up wrestling match. Alexa Bliss comes out, makes her entrance, and then The Fiend pops up from this giant jack-in-the-box, and that was pretty cool, and that was the only really cool thing about this match aside from Randy Orton's white attire. It didn't really get going, it wasn't much of a match. Randy Orton hits an RKO after Bray is distracted and then gets the win. Very lackluster, I don't know where they're going with this, and it kind of makes no sense. And The Fiend, I'm kind of over The Fiend at the moment, he's not really doing anything for me. Hopefully this feud ends, but quite an anticlimactic ending just to hit an RKO and beat The Fiend. Like, what was the point of that? Anyway, I didn't get it at all. And then next up, we had the women's tag titles on the line. Shayna Baszler and Nia Jax defending against Natalya and Tamina. The crowd were not into this at the start, and neither was I. But to be fair, once it started going, it kind of picked up a little bit. It was quite botchy at times, not exactly the cleanest match. Tamina went for the splash but missed, and then a Kirifuda clutch on Natalya was enough to seal the deal. The crowd were quite into Tamina, which was surprising to me, but it was a fine match. Not great, but I don't like the women's tag title, so I've got a little bit of bias, but better than it had any right to be, just not my cup of tea. Next up, it was Sami Zayn versus Kevin Owens, with Logan Paul pulling funny faces at ringside. This match was decent. It wasn't up to the standard that their previous matches have been, but maybe that's just because the story isn't really there in this one, but they hit all the big points like the suplex on the apron, the brainbuster I should say, on the apron, the frog splash from Kevin Owens. That wasn't enough. A haluva kick, a super kick, and then the stunner for Kevin Owens to pick up the victory over Sami Zayn, and after the match gives Logan Paul a stunner for good measure. It was a fine match, although the story wasn't really there in this one, so it was difficult to get behind it emotionally, but a fine match, not as good as their previous encounters. Next up, probably one of my favourite matches of the entire weekend, it was Riddle versus Sheamus for the United States Championship. This match, I was so invested as it went further and further along. Riddle, fantastic, he hits a floating bro to the outside. Sheamus, though, coming back with some vicious kicks and a bicycle knee at one point from a buckshot. When he comes into the ring, does Riddle. There's a slight botch when they try white noise off the top, but they didn't really need it. It was still a solid ending with a floating bro moonsault into a bro kick, and Sheamus is the new United States Champion. Just a fantastic match, second best match of the night aside from the main event. Love the physicality between these two, and Sheamus is the champion. I think he's great, and Riddle really pulled out a great performance here at Wrestlemania. Next up, the Nigerian drum fight between Apollo Crews and Big E for the Intercontinental title. This one has a little bit of a scary point at one point where he gets a Uranagi, does Apollo, onto the steel stairs, and he looks like he's selling his arm, and that looked really nasty. They're beating each other with sticks. Apollo goes for a splash through a table but misses. Big E tries for the big ending, but then Dabba-KO comes in, causes a choke slam, and causes Big E to lose the Intercontinental title. Apollo Crews is the new Intercontinental Champion. This match, it was started off alright, and then it was very short, too short for what I was expecting. They had all this stuff at ringside, and I feel like they could have done more with it. The way it was going, it was a great match, but the shortness of it and the anticlimactic ending with a debut are kind of lackluster in my view, but I'm glad to see Apollo as champion. Looking forward to seeing what he does from here. Next up, the Raw Women's Championship on the line as Rhea Ripley challenges Asuka. The crowd seems quite quiet for the bulk of this one early on. Maybe it's because they don't know who Rhea Ripley is, or I don't know if they're not invested in the match. Needless to say, it was kind of difficult without the crowd really being into it early on, but it was still really solid. Asuka is being taunted by Rhea, who keeps slapping her. There's a nasty DDT on the floor, which looked absolutely vicious. Rhea keeps trying to fight, and Asuka, she's got the kicks to her advantage. They're flowing really well, the counters and sequences in this one. It ends with a kick that gets missed into the Riptide for the win for Rhea Ripley, and she's the new Raw Women's Champion. A really good match. The crowd was a bit quiet, so it kind of hurt it a little tiny bit, but aside from that, I thought it was really good. It definitely picked up towards the end of the match, but again, great to see Rhea as champion. It's a shame that Asuka's title reign wasn't as good as it could have been, but hopefully she bounces back from this in a more productive way. But yeah, you can tell they're the top two women's workers on the roster just by the sheer viciousness and kind of skill that they have in that ring. So looking forward to seeing what Rhea has in her title reign. And now we come on to the main event for the Universal Championship triple threat match as Edge and Daniel Bryan challenge the Tribal Chief Roman Reigns. Early on in this match, Jey Uso's trying to get involved, but he gets taken out with a DDT on the steel stairs. Edge and Bryan trying to take the big man Roman Reigns down, but they cannot. They take him out eventually, and then it's Edge and Bryan fighting in the ring, trading submissions. It's really good stuff. And throughout this match, I have to say, this is probably the first big-time feeling WrestleMania match that they've had. The rest of them, they were good matches, but they didn't really feel WrestleMania worthy. This one feels like a WrestleMania main event, just in the way it's presented and the guys involved. At one point, Roman Reigns hits a powerbomb through Daniel Bryan, through the announce table, and then Edge running up the stairs with a spear. They're fighting in the ring. Both men go for the spear, but they're taken out. Daniel Bryan then comes in, breaks up the pin. A really cool spot where both Edge and Bryan have the crossface on Roman Reigns, and they're trying to headbutt each other out of the submission. Bryan hits the running knees and then kicks Roman Reigns in the stomach as he goes for the Superman punch. Edge comes in and then hits a concerto on Daniel Bryan, absolutely vicious, and you think it's over, but Roman Reigns comes in with a spear, then a concerto to Edge. Roman Reigns pulls Edge on top of Daniel Bryan, pins them both at the same time, and Roman Reigns is still your Universal Champion. And I'm in two minds about this. The actual ending visual of that match was so cool, just seeing Roman just be this dominant, evil heel, beating both of his challengers single-handedly. I loved that part, but the fact is, it's WrestleMania, and with fans there, I don't know, I really feel like you should send them home happy. You can always put the title back on Roman next month at Backlash, or WrestleMania Backlash, whatever they're calling it, but it's something that I feel like a WrestleMania main event should have. You should have the babyface triumphant, because people can call it good storytelling, but in most movies, the good guy wins out in the end because it makes you feel good for investing in it. I don't know, I feel like Edge or Bryan should have won, and then maybe you can put the title back on Roman later on down the line. But aside from that little nitpick, a great match, the best match of the weekend, and a solid way to end Night 2 of WrestleMania. So overall, I have to say, I enjoyed Night 1 more than Night 2, but the main event of Night 2 was absolutely fantastic. A fantastic main event, probably the best main event of WrestleMania since WrestleMania 30 when Daniel Bryan won the title. I absolutely loved Riddle versus Sheamus. I thought that was a very good match in its own right. And most of the card, it wasn't really doing it for me, like Orton versus The Fiend, the women's tag title match. The Nigerian drum fight could have been a little bit better. Asuka versus Rhea was good, but it could have been better. And also the ending was a bit of a flat one with Roman being the heel, winning the main event of WrestleMania, but you had your happy ending with Bianca winning the title on Night 1. So I think it's okay in a way that you can do that on Night 2 to have Roman go over. But that's my thoughts on WrestleMania. A really fun weekend of wrestling. Maybe not the best WrestleMania of all time, but it was certainly cool to see the fans back and the spectacle that we've been missing for so long. But what did you think of WrestleMania? Let me know in the comments below. Make sure you like the video as it helps get the channel out there. And as always, remember to subscribe to NLW Figs. Thank you for watching, and I'll catch you guys later.